The idea of a minority government is a little bewildering. The idea of just severing an agreement that's been, an official agreement for some time is slightly perplexing. The whole thing seems quite difficult to understand. Maybe you'll talk us through what was going on before, what's happened since the agreement, and how it could be kiboshed like this.
I mean, let me deal with that second point first, right, which is just, why would the deal be kiboshed? The fact of the matter is that this came as a great surprise, not just to journalists, but came as a great surprise to the Greens as well. They found out last night at 7 o'clock the First Minister wanted to have a special cabinet meeting this morning. We found out this morning on social media that this was happening. And then by the time we got to 10 o'clock, the First Minister had effectively put the whole thing in the bin, saying he was exercising leadership. Going back to your previous conversation, he said he was taking back control of his government. By the time we got to 12 o'clock, we were in a situation at First Minister's questions that Douglas Ross, the Scottish Conservative leader, said he wanted a vote of no confidence. That's probably going to happen next Wednesday. The opposition parties are lining up to support that vote of no confidence. So this story's got a way to run. Why are we here? Well, you're right. You pointed out last week there was a big row in the Greens about the dropping of climate change targets. They also were very unhappy, some individual members, about the Scottish Government's attitude to puberty blockers in the wake of the Cass report. And that called the Greens to question the whole concept of the agreement. And really what's happened today is Humza's trumped all that and basically disposed of it before the Greens got an opportunity to actually debate it. But the agreement itself, it was back to 2021. It came in the wake of the last Holyrood election because Nicola Sturgeon had failed at that time to win an absolute majority. So she made that deal, making it easier for the SNP and the Greens to have a majority to get laws through in the Scottish Parliament. And also what it did was it gave the Greens ministers in the government for the first time, well, really ever, in any administration, either devolved or at Westminster, for the first time ever. So it's been there for nearly 3 years and now it's gone. But with it is another crisis for Humza Yousaf.
Yeah, well, I mean, he must know, John, mustn't he, that he's bowling merrily straight into a crisis. And if Nicola Sturgeon thought that she needed the ballast of an alliance with the Greens, how can he suddenly blithely assume that he doesn't need it? How can he think he's going to function in government this way? What do you imagine is going through his head?
Well, I think there's a few things here. I think it is possible to exist as a minority administration. Nicola Sturgeon did that between 2016 and 2021 until this agreement was actually signed. Alex Salmond did it way back in 2007 for 4 years. So, a deft and sophisticated political leadership that's competent can actually carry these things off. You make individual deals around policies with different political parties. You get your budget through by way of concessions. But look, Humza Yousaf's in a very different position here. He's a guy that really, since he started 13 months ago, misfortunes followed him around. He's had to make a number of U-turns in policies. He doesn't have the authority of either his two predecessors. One of the main reasons, I think, for what happened today is that, the SNP are getting a lot of stick in the doorsteps about the Greens, about the policies, the identity politics, all that gender reform stuff that we've talked about before, for example, which is proving unpopular, as MPs are facing electoral oblivion, really, at the general election in a few months' time. And they've been really, unhappy, I think, privately behind closed doors with this whole agreement. They're also unhappy, of course, that the Greens are going to contest lots and lots of seats at the Scottish election, which may take some votes away from them, enough to tip the balance in some seats so that Labour wins the seats. So it's a pretty unhappy time. I think it would be fair to say that maybe, this is probably the last throw of the dice for Humza Yousaf. A lot of people expect that if they have a really poor general election, he won't be there very long after, but he's still got to survive that vote of confidence next week. And in that, it looks as if, as I said earlier, that the opposition parties are lining up to support that vote of no confidence in him. And actually, it might even depend, the final result, on the sole member of Alex Salmond's party, whether he keeps Humza Yousaf in office, whether she keeps Humza Yousaf in office or not.